And we're joined by the chairman, Chairman Chabot. So we've been having a great discussion, Chairman, about everything that's going on in the Congress, and it's a really exciting time for small business. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. It's great to be with you, and look forward to talking with you for a few minutes here.
Well, let me just give you a proper introduction. You've been a really great friend and champion of small business. Your committee leadership last in the 114th Congress and already in the 115th. Has really made a difference for small business. You've had principled leadership, effective leadership, and inclusive leadership. I mean, it is a great, committee to work with. It's a great committee to send our members to testify. They really enjoyed it. We love the bipartisan atmosphere there, but also it's very effective, and we certainly do appreciate it. Chairman is from Ohio, the 1st District, Cincinnati area. And again, he's a champion. He scored tremendously on our ratings, 100%, and he's been a great friend.
I'll try to do better next time, Karen.
You'll try to do what?
I'll try to do better next time. I only got 100%.
Yes, we'll have those secret votes, But, Chairman, I guess this is the opportunity. We have, some questions that came in from our members, but, perhaps you can start off by giving us an idea of, the path forward for the committee, what you're going to be focusing on, and how that blends, with the priorities of the Congress and also with the new administration as well.
Sure, I'd love to. And stop me if I go on too long, because I get excited when I talk about small business issues, because it's really important. You've got half of the American people who work for a small business. 70% of the new jobs created in America are created by small business folks, and there's an awful lot of families all over America that are supported by small businesses. So they're very, very important, and we look forward to continuing to work with the SBE, and you guys have been great. So thank you. As far as going forward, what we have on our agenda, a few things, and probably before getting to that, I should say, you mentioned the administration. We're really excited about one thing that came out just recently, the executive order on regulations. President Trump saying that he wants to get rid of 2 regulations for every one that we have now, and make this pay for itself. I mean, it's what a breath of fresh air that is, because I have to tell you, as chair of this committee, I hear from small business people, not only from my district in Cincinnati, but from small business all across the country, and they say overregulation is their top issue, very top. And as far as priorities go, Obamacare, repealing and replacing it so that it's more patient-oriented. It's actually something that helps people rather than hurts them. One that we actually keep the promise that you're not going to lose your doctor or your healthcare plan if you like it, that kind of thing, which those promises obviously weren't kept. So that's at or near the top of the list. Reducing regulations, I've already mentioned that. Reforming the tax code. We've really got a chance of getting it done this time. The challenge, to be honest with you, is going to be, we kind of think the sky's the limit. Maybe 8 Democratic votes over in the Senate may be the limit on some things. So we're going to need to be bipartisan, like you mentioned, Karen, that we are on this committee. Nydia Velasquez, who's the ranking member, and I have a very good working relationship. We have in the past, and we're going to continue to have one this time. So I'm excited about the progress we're going to make for small business in this Congress.
Yeah, we were also the executive order on Monday. We were also very excited about that. I mean, just, for the federal government to be able to understand, the cost of regulation and just, the cumulative costs that have really sort of piled up, over the years, and particularly on small business, and really get a handle on that, and come up with a budgetary framework where, they're not imposing, additional costs on small business. And it really gives them the opportunity, from our perspective, to look at some of the underbrush too. I mean, some of the things that they really should be getting rid of, some of the duplicative regulation or unnecessary regulation. So we're excited, about that whole initiative as well. On tax reform, it's going to be, you're right. I mean, this is an issue we're very excited about. Our members are excited about. I mean, it can't happen quick enough. And I keep telling a lot of our members, look, it's only been like, a month, but they are very, very excited about this. And how is the committee going to weigh in on that issue? I know, when you had the GOP blueprint last year, obviously you all, had some input into that, and the members on the committee. But moving forward, we know there's some issues. Obviously the new administration is involved with that. You've got the Senate. So how is the Small Business Committee going to sort of impact or influence, that final package?
I'm glad you asked that, because taxes, other than overregulation, is one of the other huge challenges that small businesses face all the time. When we change the tax code, or if it's unfair, the large corporations, they can hire another couple of attorneys or accountants, and it's not that big a hit on their budget. But for the little guy or the little lady, woman who is operating their business, it can be literally the life or death of that business. So we've been working very closely. In fact, I talked to him just yesterday, Kevin Brady of Texas, who's the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which of course is the tax writing committee in Congress. We've talked on numerous occasions over the last few months about working together on this and what our ideas are to make sure that when the tax code is reformed for the first time in a long time, that one of the priorities that are taken into consideration and what the impact's going to be on small businesses in this country.
No, that's terrific. That is absolutely. And Kristie, I don't know if you had a question that you want to, Kristie, as you know, has been in the small business community for a while, and she's joined us at the SBE Council. So, but she's also a small business owner, a very successful one, I might add. So she's sort of juggling both. She's running a business and she's working with SBE Council. So she is one of my heroes. But Kristie, did you have something that you wanted to ask?
Sure. Well, Chairman, you mentioned the trifecta for small business. You mentioned, regulation, tax, and healthcare. And there's another area of importance to small business. I know as a business owner myself, this is an important component of what we need to have grow, and that's access to capital. Is there anything coming down the pike, or are there particular areas of focus for the committee around access to capital issues, which has been one of the biggest challenges for anyone looking to both start a business and grow a business when you're small?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've put your finger on the trifecta. I guess there's 4 actually things and if you want to throw trade in there, it could be 5 things that we are very involved with on the committee, and we're going to focus attention on. It's tough to get money nowadays, and what has made it harder is Dodd-Frank. We have had relative to Dodd-Frank. We've had business people from all over the country come in and explain to us why it makes it tougher for them to get money. And of course, it was passed in reaction to the economic meltdown, and it was targeted at the so-called too big to fail banks. Unfortunately, it has also had a tremendous impact on community banks, credit unions, and others. And those people were not intended to be targeted, we're told, but they have been. So we need to either repeal it or dramatically reduce the impact it's having against access to capital in this country right now. We'll have to work with some of the other committees, obviously, financial services, Ways and Means as well. We have been and will continue to do that. One other thing I'd mention relative to access to capital is we passed a couple of pieces of legislation already that were small business things. One was the HALOS Act, which I want to mention, which has to do with angels investing. They have demo days around the country, oftentimes at community colleges, universities. It's to put people that might potentially be investors together with entrepreneurs who need the money. You got people who want to invest, and you got people who need the money. There was new legislation that came out. The previous administration, I don't want to sit here and bash them, but then a lot of things, it just makes no sense. And to make it harder for entrepreneurs and investors to get together is just wrong. So the HALOS bill is and it kind of had to pass the Senate. Yes, we need to get through the Senate. That will go a long way towards getting these important folks together. And the other act that we already passed, and this goes back to what you said, Karen, on regulations, is the Regulatory Flexibility Improvements Act. And what that would do is it would require the bureaucracy up here in Washington, when they're going to pass any new rules or regulation, they have to consider not only the direct, but the indirect impact and the cumulative impact on small businesses all across the country. The Obama administration threatened, we passed it in the House, we couldn't get it through Harry Reid over in the Senate. Obama had threatened a veto, so it never went anywhere. Mike Pence, our new vice president, was on the Small Business Committee. I served with him. Also served with him on the Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee, too, so I've known him for a long time. He's not only supportive of the Regulatory Flexibility Improvements Act, he was a co-sponsor of it when he was in Congress. We know what he thinks about it, and we know that he has Donald Trump's ear. So I'm really optimistic we're going to be able to get that passed.
Right, that's great. And we know that bill was embedded in that broader Regulatory Accountability Act that passed a couple of weeks ago. We were supportive of that. I think it has 5 main titles, and your small business piece was a title of that. And we're really, again, this is another issue that we think there can be consensus, and we can, there can be some consensus that comes together, and that we get enough, senators to support a bill that can go to the president's desk. And so we appreciate your leadership on this small business side, because they really feel that their voice is underrepresented, that the agencies don't listen to them even when they comment on things. And so that, so your bill includes all those elements in terms of accountability, transparency, giving small business a voice that they feel that they lack. So thank you for doing that. We're very appreciative of that. Also on the regulatory front, the House is taking up 5, they're using their congressional review authority under the Congressional Review Act, if I'm saying this correctly, to rescind 5 last-minute or 5 regulations that were done during the waning days of the Obama administration. And one of those will be voted on today, the blacklisting regulation, which we weighed in on. We're actually in the room with the DOL telling them how complex and wrong and unjust this was and its impact on small business. But if you want to just give us an idea of sort of how that will fare in the House, we assume it will pass. But on any of these resolutions that you all are voting on, in terms of the opportunity to get these to the president's desk, and maybe what else may be coming down the pike as well.
Yeah, the blacklisting, as you mentioned, Karen, it's a big issue. And as a matter of fact, coincidentally, the reason I wasn't on here at the beginning of this is that I was over on the floor of the House voting, and I was talking to Virginia Fox of North Carolina, who's the key player in this whole thing, and we've been working with her on this. And the blacklisting and in general, what it does is it makes it tougher for small businesses to get a fair shot. They have to come in with more and more paperwork, and it's just an overregulation that's unnecessary. We've had about 100,000 fewer small businesses now contracting with the government in the second Obama administration from 2012 to 2016. So we want to reverse that, because the more small businesses that have access to doing business with the federal government, it means more competition, and therefore more competition means we can get the prices down for the taxpayer. So it just makes sense. As you indicated, Karen, we're supposed to be voting on that on the floor later on this afternoon. I'm optimistic it's going to pass, but you also brought up the other question. We pass it fine, it's got to get through the Senate too. So my challenge or suggestion would be that you need to get your folks who this would affect calling their senators. You probably don't have to call too many of us in the House, we're with you, but we need all the Republicans, and we need at least 8 Democrats to get it to the president's desk. And this will be our key challenge, I think, in the upcoming Congress, because if you've seen all these marches going on and our offices being protested, I think you're only seeing the beginning of what's going to happen. It's unfortunately, I think, is going to be politicalized from the other side. And that's not to say our side hasn't done this in the past on occasion, but it may be almost unprecedented. So if we want to get stuff done, we have to convince people the truth, and that's that we're doing this for the American people, so we need your help.
Right, and yeah, definitely the Senate is the challenge, and that's what we're, we have our sights set on in terms of, working with our members and getting them, to call offices so we can get some of these things to the president's desk. I guess the question on healthcare and the whole Obamacare issue. If you read, in the press and, a lot of the talk is about, gee, no one knows what they're doing in terms of replace and repeal. From what I've seen over the years, there has been a very thoughtful approach to this. There's been a number of bills and actually a process, to sort of schedule in some of these things so, that it isn't a shock to the system, that everyone's taken care of. And so it's a methodical approach. But I want you to comment on that as well, because so our small business members know that, look, there is a strategy here, and it's not just something that you all are doing willy-nilly.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the last time when this thing was passed, in many ways it was done to the American people, not with the American people. Our idea is to do it with the American people because they're going to be most directly affected by this. And you're right, there are a number of plans. I'm a co-sponsor of several of those plans. We're working methodically through this in an orderly fashion. In our committee, we're also, in fact, we have a hearing just next week on healthcare in the Small Business Committee, and I would encourage folks to listen or comment or come to the hearing if you'd like to. And we're going to be listening to small businesses around the country, what they would like to see us do. So the idea is before we just, pass something so we can find out what's in it, we're actually going to work with the American people and make sure the right stuff is in there before we pass it. Because healthcare is critical to every American, especially small business folks.
Absolutely. Kristie, did you have anything on that front, or?
No, I mean, I definitely agree. As as a small business owner, it's you don't have a team of lawyers, team of benefit administrators to figure all of this out for you. So
even the extra money to pay for the increase,
or the money to pay for them. So it's very important to have that simplification. And I think on the healthcare front, it's also so personal because we want to make sure our employees are like our family. So we want to make sure that that we're doing right by them as well as for our own family. And cost affordability, I can't tell you, has been such a huge issue, seeing the costs go up and up, but also just understanding, all the changes that are coming down the pike. So we look forward to working with the Small Business Committee to help kind of distill what's going on in the health reform debate and figure out how that's going to be impacting small businesses. So we as business owners can prepare for ourselves and for our employees.
All right, you've mentioned some, Kristie, and I think it illustrates something very important, and that's that too often, I think over the years, the government, the elected officials up here, and the bureaucracy that we're supposed to be working with, the executive branch of the government, they've looked at it like we can't trust businesses. They don't care about their employees. They're going to abuse them. They're going to mistreat them, and there are always a few out there that are bad apples, but the overwhelming majority of small business folks in this country care a lot about their employees, or they're not going to be successful. They understand that. You don't necessarily need the government telling you every single thing you ought to do it and how you ought to do it. And I'm hoping that that's the change that we're going to see in this next Congress. That was kind of one of the impetus behind a better way that Speaker Paul Ryan put together. We didn't know who our presidential nominee was going to be. We certainly didn't know who was going to be elected, but we put together an agenda last year called A Better Way, and small business was very heavily involved in that. And that was the idea. Let's work with folks to do what's good for their businesses, for their employees, for the American people, and not figure they're all a bunch of crooks just trying to abuse their employees, because it's just not the case.
And we appreciate that inclusive approach. I know that the committee's reached out to us, or the task force, and our members wanting all their ideas. Do you have time for 2 more questions, Chairman Chabot?
I have to go over and do another thing, but I'll try to make my answers less long-winded than I'm unfortunately probably some of them have been.
Okay, and then we're going to send you a few follow-up questions if you don't mind, because our members, we're trying to bunch together all the ones we got into broad topics here. I guess I'll ask this question about, what is your hope for the SBA? Okay, so we have a new administrator, Linda McMahon, who I assume is going to be confirmed by the full Senate. I mean, she sailed through the Senate 18-1, the Senate committee vote, and hopefully the Senate will act on her confirmation vote. It goes to the floor, and we'll have a new SBA administrator very soon. But what is your hope for the SBA? I mean, we have some ideas, in terms of how it could be more effective for small business. We know there's some reforms that need to take place over there, but we also know it could be a more effective agency, or, agency for small business. So what are your hopes for the SBA? Since that, you have oversight over the entire agency.
We do. It's one of our principal responsibilities, oversight over the SBA. And let's face it, over the years, what I've heard from business folks when we talk about getting SBA loans, and there are a whole bunch of them, 7A, 8A, you name it, microloan programs, hub zones, just a whole range of things. If you try to get a loan through the SBA, and of course the SBA isn't giving the money, they're guaranteeing the loan that comes from a private bank. But it's too paperwork intensive a process. That's something that we want to make it more consumer, customer friendly than it is right now. And actually, we're talking about 4 or 5% of the loans in America that goes to small business go through the SBA. So the overwhelming majority, the SBA is not even involved. But some of the pretty important ones are SBA loans. So they need to be more consumer friendly. I had a phone conversation with her when she was picked by President Trump, or at that time, President-elect Trump. Very nice conversation. I've studied up on her background. I'm very impressed with that. To be honest with you, I also had a very good working relationship with Maria Contreras-Sweet, too. She came to Cincinnati in my district. We worked with her up here all the time. That didn't prevent us from doing aggressive oversight when we thought it was necessary. But I think you can get things done. You can agree on things and work things out without being disagreeable. And that's kind of the policy. That's why I think, Karen, you mentioned this early on. We have a good working relationship, in our committee. It's pretty bipartisan. We do. On both sides of the aisle, we really try to work together. We figure, there's no, and Nydia likes to say this, Nydia Velasquez, who's the chairman, or excuse me, she's the ranking member now, was the chairman, and I'm the chairman now. And we've gone back and forth a couple of times, but she likes to say there's no Democratic small business or Republican small businesses, or just small businesses. And I like to look at it that way too. So I'm optimistic about our new director at the SBA.
Good. And one more nerdy question. This is how you're going to end, with the nerdy question. No, it is actually, it's a very specific question. And then you're done. We'll let you go back to work because we know you're fighting hard for small business there. This was just a question about the letter that you and Ranking Member Velasquez sent to the GSA administration in April of 2016, and it was about the small business impact of category management of the FSSI initiative, the Federal Strategic Savings Initiatives. There was, there's a lot of money at stake. The question is, there was no response, I guess, from the GSA administration or administrator. And because of that, is there anything that the committee plans to do to follow up with that, a hearing or any type of actions? Is this ringing a bell, Chairman Chabot? I know you sent a lot of letters, so.
You're right, a lot of letters, and there's a lot of letters that get sent under my name as well, as you can probably imagine, with all the things that we do. I will check on that, is the honest answer, and make sure that it does illustrate another point, and that's that you see this too often with the federal bureaucracy, and this happens with all committees. We'll send a letter, it goes into the ether, and you don't get a response back oftentimes. And one of the things that our new president, and some people love him and some people can't stand him, that we understand that. I don't agree with him all the time either. I agree with him most of the time. But he's talked about bringing what you have to do to be successful in the business community, where you have to compete with somebody. That's the problem with the government. We don't compete with anybody. And so everybody gets lousy services too often. He's talking about bringing in management that you get in the private sector. And if you were in the private sector and you sent something to one of your managers and they never even responded to a letter, they'd be out the door in a heartbeat. So anyway, that's we will follow up on that. There's clearly going to be more oversight, and we're going to push forward. And as I said before, let me conclude with this. I'm very optimistic that small businesses, for the next 4 or 8 years, hopefully for the next 100 years, we're going to be taking things in the right direction. And I, again, appreciate the SBE Council's involvement in everything we're doing, because we've worked closely together over the years, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman. We know you're really busy, and we just really appreciate your leadership and being with us here today. And of course, we're going to be there to support you and your initiatives. And again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And all you have to do then is, you've got a little red thing there that you can hit the button, the staff can, so that you're out of the green room. and then we'll wrap up. Kristie and I will wrap up. So.
And I just like to say thank you again. And also for anyone interested, you can visit the House Small Business Committee website to get up-to-date information about hearings and all the great news coming out of the committee. And you can also follow them on Twitter at House Small Biz. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, that was really great. He stayed with us quite a long time, which was nice. And we heard, you know, where the committee is going to go. You could tell that he's very passionate about what he does, right, Kristie?
Oh, I think so. It's great. One of the great things about the Small Business Committee over the years has been, you know, as I know a lot of, you know, business owners and Americans out there feel like there's this, you know, contentious partisanship. The Small Business Committee has really been a beacon of bipartisanship, and seeing how members of Congress from both sides of the aisle can come together to work on issues that are important to so many Americans. So, and he and Nydia Velázquez, Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, have led the charge on that bipartisanship. So I think there'll be a lot of great things coming down the pike for business owners, as he mentioned, you know, on tax, regulatory reform, access to capital, healthcare. It's going to be exciting to see, you know, what will eventually make it to the president's desk that can help our bottom lines.
Yeah, and I would just echo, you know, what the chairman said about being engaged as, you know, as a citizen, you know, a concerned small business owner, because the Senate has been the challenge. I mean, really, I mean, it's challenging enough in that things do slow down over there because, again, the rules are different. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different ball game over there. So, you know, to the extent that if you are new to SBE Council watching us today, you know, you can go to our website and sign up as an advocate for free, where you will get action alerts and notices about weighing in with your senators, because we are going to need that support if we're going to get things to the president's desk. And, you know, people, as the chairman mentioned, are pretty charged right now, right? I mean, you've got, you know, every single issue, you know, there's going to be a fight on. And some of the things that I think we're pushing for are just very reasonable, extremely mainstream, and something that the majority of the public supports. You know, tax reform, accountability in government, you know, giving small businesses a shot. You know, but there are special interests around these, you know, around these efforts as well. So we're going to need your help. And I do hope that you weigh in and get active and, you know, make that call when we ask you to, or when we request that you do that.
No, I agree. It's critically important if you want to see action here in Washington, D.C. and on Capitol Hill to get involved, and SB Council is a great place to get involved. Please, we do Small Business Insider Live every Thursday. We have policymakers like Congressman Steve Chabot. We talk about the issues that are coming down the pike to keep you informed. We talk with experts in different fields on different topics so that you can get all the information you need to help you make smart decisions for your business and get prepared when it comes to business growth. So please follow SBE Council on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at SBE Council. And also please check out our website at sbecouncil.org. Karen, thanks so much for your time, and thank you everyone for your participation.
And thank you. And again, if you have solutions, send them to us as well. We really want your ideas. We've been great at taking solutions and pushing them through the legislative process to the president's desk. We do have a good track record in that regard. So we want your ideas and your solutions as well. But thank you, everyone. And thank you, Kristie, again, for bringing us all together today.
Thanks.